First off, as we stand in footsteps of millennia old, I would like to respectfully acknowledge the traditional owners of the land which we gather today and pay my due respect to elders past and present. I'd also like to acknowledge my good friends, the Mayor of Toowoomba, Paul Antonio, welcome Paul, the Acting Mayor of Ipswich, Paul Tully, councillors that are present here in the room, but particularly I would like to acknowledge my good friend, Councillor Chris Tate from Toowoomba. Chris, welcome. I'd also like to acknowledge the Honourable Ian Macfarlane. If ever there was a wonderful guy in the wrong political party, that was Ian Macfarlane. Distinguished guests. Have I offended anyone yet, Ian? I thank you for the opportunity to be here today to speak on behalf of the Palaszczuk Labor Government because we're making Queensland's regional economies Australia's strongest and most diverse, and it's the diversity that really counts in regional Queensland. And our economy does head in the right direction and continues. You know, a $2.8 billion surplus, $14 billion of state debt paid down with the last budget. But it has to happen with the assistance of the private sector, and none better of a private sector project to talk about than Queen's Wharf. It's one of Australia's largest, biggest building projects. It's underway just up the river. You can see the demolition work in progress. $3 billion worth of development. It will drive growth and development in southeast Queensland, but also across the entire regional Queensland. From the time it opens in 2022, it is estimated that 1.4 million additional tourists will visit Queen's Wharf, Brisbane, driving jobs and development across this state. It'll open supply chains and opportunities for everything from fresh produce to beef, timber, arts, crafts and flowers. And the Queen's Wharf, the people involved with Queen's Wharf have been travelling this state, sourcing that produce, sourcing that wonderful artwork, etc., that we'll use in that development. And I've just returned from Cairns. I've come down to work on a couple of major projects, but the rest of the government is still up in Cairns. And I've also, last week, I was at the North Queensland Stadium site. Now, as Queen's Wharf Brisbane is doing here for the southwest, the North Queensland Stadium is already starting to revitalise Townsville and stimulate the local economy and generate local jobs. It's just put an aura of stimulation, hope and prosperity back to North Queensland. Now, local firms are on site as we speak, starting work on that stadium, doing preliminary works. We expect to see around 2,000 people employed on site during construction, and 80% of the project funding is to flow to local businesses under WATPAC's plans for local procurement. And I'm proud of the Department of State Development, who's ensured that 80% of that work is done by locals. That'll be a Townsville for North Queensland, built by North Queenslanders. Also, we have our Building Our Regions program, injecting more than $580 million to improve the lives and economic futures of communities from the Torres Strait to the border, but most importantly, nearly 1,800 jobs generated from this program. There's 174 projects between the Palaszczuk government and regional councils. It's been a wonderful, wonderful initiative and been well accepted. Now, we're talking about energy. I just want to focus on the renewable economy that we are developing, and we're very strong in this sector. But I take Andrew's point, there has to be a balance, and people forget 50% renewables by 2030 means 50% of something else, and 50% of something else is going to be coal and gas. Also, Queensland will always have a strong coal sector, always. It will never disappear because something like 75% of value of our coal is metallurgical coal. And that coal will continue to be mined, continue to be exported and continue to be used across the world in the manufacture of steel and in the manufacture of renewables. But we're leading the charge in transitioning Queensland to a clean energy future with key developments such as the Kidston Hydro and Solar Project and the Coopers Gap Wind Farm. The once great Kidston Gold Mine, 280 kilometres southwest of Townsville, or northwest of Townsville, sorry, is starting another economic life as Genex's Kidston's project and is becoming a solar but also a pumped storage hydro power producer for the state. Now, pumped hydro storage is a 24-hour solar power plant. It pumps water during the day through solar panels, through solar power to a dam on the top of a mountain. During the night, that water flows down as hydro and the cycle is repeated. And the solar array and that hydro is enough to provide all of Townsville's peak power demands through renewable sources, reliable renewable sources. The first stage is due to be completed this year and 88 jobs are out there now. There's a total of 500 construction jobs and 18 operational positions on the project. The Independent Coordinator-General has declared this a critical infrastructure project, and that highlights this government's commitment to generate 50% of Queensland's electricity needs from renewable energy by 2030. Last month, the government gave AGL Energy the green light to build up to 115 turbines for the Coopers Gap wind farm between Kingaroy and Dalby. That's $500 million worth of wind farm, 350 construction jobs, plus 20 permanent jobs when it's opened in 2020. And that wind farm will provide enough electricity for 240,000 households. And that was almost a record for the Coordinator-General's approval process. He had that project through in 6 months. There's nothing like a fantastic red tape busting project to get it through. And my congratulations for AGL for their cooperation in getting that project through from start to finish through the approvals process in 6 months, which proves that this government can bust red tape. We have a vision to develop a $1 billion sustainable and export-orientated industrial biotechnology and bioproduct sector in Queensland, attracting investment, create regional and high-value and knowledge-intensive jobs. We have a BioFutures roadmap. Now, last month, $1 million went to Southern Oil to develop a demonstration biohydrogen unit at their plant at Yarwun, which is near Gladstone, through our commercialisation program. The company only recently opened their $16 million Northern Oil Advanced Biofuels pilot plant and was attracted up to Queensland. We did one of the old Peter Beattie tricks, grab them from down south and drag them up north to where we want them and they belong. The plant already employs 45 full-time equivalent jobs, and that will be expanded to a commercial scale refinery, producing 200 million litres of advanced biofuel per annum. And you've heard the Premier talk about the suitabilities of that fuel for powering the American Navy. On Monday, I was in Mareeba to announce our latest BioFutures project, MSF Sugar's $60 million new investment for an Atherton Tableland biorefinery that could generate 130 regional jobs and encourage diverse cropping in that region. Now, it also has a green power cogeneration plant attached to that, and that will produce enough electricity to supply every house on the tablelands. So every house on the tablelands can be, electricity demand can be met by that power plant. And people forget in cogeneration, a third of Mackay's power this day is by green, renewable cogeneration from the mills around Mackay. So a third of Mackay's power comes from renewable sources as we speak. So that project in Mareeba is among 6 multi-million-dollar BioFutures projects we are processing that could generate more than 330 jobs in regional Queensland. Now, these projects come out of the BioFutures Acceleration Program, where we invited expressions of interest and drew proposals from companies in US, Asia, Europe, as well as Australia. And I was in the US selling Queensland to the world for green renewable energy sources. And the Premier was out there as well. And her success was the American biotechnology company, Amyris, with their proposed biorefinery in another Queensland sugarcane region that will generate up to 70 jobs. And you probably read it in the press, it hopes to produce a high-value sugarcane-based ingredient for use in cosmetics, fragrances, fuels, solvents, lubricants, and pharmaceuticals. Now, last month, I was in Dalby to announce a $26 million proposed expansion of United Ethanol's Dalby biorefinery that will generate 50 local jobs and boost sorghum demand on the Darling Downs. And United Ethanol's Dalby biorefinery plans to expand its existing plant to allow the company to boost biofuel production capacity by 24 million litres to 100 million litres per year to help to meet the expected demand of biofuel usage across Queensland. This is not an insignificant plant. Our $130 million Jobs and Regional Growth Fund is delivering for regional Queensland and our biofuture. The fund facilitates private sector projects and creates employment and economic growth opportunities in regional Queensland, focusing on regions with higher than average unemployment. We recently announced over $8 million in assistance from this fund for Bioprocessing Australia's $50 million biorefinery in Mackay, another 115 jobs there. The project's oilseed crushing plan is to establish a large-scale soybean cash cropping in the Mackay region, creating an additional income stream for cane farmers. Now, manufacturing. The Queensland manufacturing sector does employ approximately 170,000 people and generates over $20 billion a year in manufacturing already in Queensland. Now, through a new program called Made in Queensland, we've allocated $20 million to award matching grants to manufacturers to help them innovate and grow. I recently was in Toowoomba. I met the first two Made in Queensland recipients, Toowoomba's Gesner, an agricultural and construction machinery manufacturer, and Global Rotomoulding, a plastics manufacturer. Now, these businesses are great examples of regional businesses growing through innovation and improvement, and we're happy to assist them. The Premier launched the Queensland Biomedical 10-year roadmap and action plan last month during her trip to the US to boost the sector's global competitiveness by unlocking investment and jobs of the future. Now, biomedical, this is the area I'm mostly passionate about. I'm passionate about all areas, but I feel more familiar with the biomedical. One of the adjunct professorship position I hold is with QUT School of Biomechanical Engineering. And I did a lot of work at Prince Charles Hospital, or I was this morning, so it brought back some dear memories. And we're investing money to expand the biomedical sector. We know how this sector alone can be a real jobs generator into Queensland. And we hope to deliver 3,000 new jobs as quickly as we possibly can. And we have a biomedical assistance fund as part of that package, but also some of the simple things. You know, there's $550 million available for biomedical research in Australia today, helping Queensland companies get on the front foot to unlock the key to grab part of that $550 million. It's like a road to success where we're organising for Queensland companies to untap, to unlock that research money. And I've just come back from Prince Charles Hospital, where world-leading research is being done on the early detection of lung cancer. And it was fantastic to see that there. And I'm so proud of it because Prince Charles Hospital is in the centre of the electorate of Stafford. So it's just fantastic to see it all happening. And yes, with everyone thinking of an election coming on, I was shaking a few hands, Paul, as you suggested I should do. Now, the state development areas. On Tuesday in Cairns, we announced the start of a process to create the latest state development area. It's actually the first in far north Queensland. Now, public consultation is open for this potential area, and it's on the site east of the Bruce Highway, just north of Gordonvale. Now, the Cairns South State Development Area will strengthen the far north Queensland economy and boost the region's industrial credentials by attracting industry to that site. People forget that in the area between Cairns and Gordonvale, in the next 15 years, in that area alone, the population will grow to accommodate another city the size of Rockhampton. That's how quickly Cairns is growing. So it's important that we had to plan for the future to make sure we had these industrial sites set aside so people know that there will be a medium to high industrial level activity going on within that site. And also, I couldn't help but notice in Cairns the amount of foot traffic. There was a cruise ship in town and there were people everywhere. That is one dynamic city. And us also increasing the capacity of that port, working with Ports North, unlocks further potential for Cairns to grow and thrive. Now, before the end of this year, our state's population will reach 5 million. Queensland businesses have every reason to be confident and to remain optimistic about our future and the opportunities ahead of us, both in our state and in our nation, as well as in the global economy. The Palaszczuk government is working to deliver and implement the next phase of our economic plan to ensure we make the most of our natural resources, our skills and our manufacturing sector. Through the programs, or some of the few programs that I've outlined to you today, you can see we are striking the right balance to drive investment in major projects, build and diversify our regional economies, which are very important to us, create the jobs of the future in our priority industries, and establish areas where industrial development can thrive. And lastly, we are expecting a very significant announcement at the end of this week that will be important for all of Queensland. And I look forward later this week to sharing that exciting news with you all. Thank you.